You have to keep in mind the structure, have a good introduction and a very good conclusion, because even if you read the complete work, they have like a time crunch, or they are bored and tired of everything, so they will only read the start and the end, right? So make sure your start and end are comprehensive enough to give in your entire perspective, your summary, your stance, what you're putting forward to, whenever it is based on current affairs or some kind of a, taking an opinion. Like, for example, if I ask you, do you think the budget is a fruitful exercise? Right? You can be in favor of it and you can be against it, like having the budget being released every year. So, whatever is your take, I should be able to come to that understanding from your intro plus the conclusion. That's point one. Okay. Secondly, when we are looking at now my case based ones which are there, we have short caselets. Some of the caselets were itself very lengthy. The whole scenario had a lot of information given. So, what you're going to do is, based on that information, what can be the next steps? Okay. So, plan that. You use any of the frameworks which we have studied so that you have a structured approach. Write the headings, those are all management terms, so make sure you utilize them and them bold so that people are able to read just the highlighted points as well also and get the flow of your entire submission. All right, so that is what I need you all to keep in mind for what. Make sense? Yes or no? Glad, Siddharth, you had SSBF. What, and it helped you today. Very good. Great. So now let's move forward to the next set of things to keep in mind is going to be for your personal interview. Okay, just before that, can you quickly tell me, Siddharth, what kind of questions were you asked? Were you asked based interview questions, or were they based on your form? Finance-based questions, academic, and also form-based questions. Very good. So, guys, in mind, okay, this is very common for all the colleges which have an application for an SOP. Whatever you have submitted, they are asking you a lot of questions on that. So, ensure that you had submitted and are talking in the same lines and coming on the, it should be in consensus. It shouldn't look like the SOP was written by somebody else and somebody else is sitting out for my interview. They should be coherent. That's very, very essential. There are two very essential questions which have been asked to almost 90% of the students in all the interviews. Is one, to introduce yourself, and second, why MBA. Okay? Because at the end of the day, that's the most crucial part, whether you are able to convince the panelists, are you fit for an MBA or not? Okay. Now, based on your background, you will be grilled on the why MBA question, because my follow-up comes on that. Like, for example, if you're a WorkX guy, I can grill you and say that, you know what, why have you not continuing with your work really well? Why should you leave that? Why are you losing that opportunity cost of 2 years not earning anything? Correct? Then if you're a fresher, I can tell you, I think you are not ready for it as yet. You should take some industry exposure, get some WorkX, and come to us. You will not understand anything, right? So these are some of the follow-up kind of ways I can grill you on your why MBA. Okay, Rishika, now when you talk about how to justify a year gap, see, that is very important what you did in that year gap. Okay, So there are various aspects which you can talk about of doing in the year gap. One is where you talk about you did some skill development activities, like you picked up some courses, whether it's online, it's certificate courses, offline, any of them. You can talk about if you did any kind of internship or freelance work, or just help someone in your family in their business, which you can talk about, like, some kind of a little exposure that you gave to yourself. Third could be during work at NGOs and such kind of societies and clubs, all of those things. Last but not the least, be the fact that you have prepared for the exams. Okay, you only prepared for exams should not be the case, because then I'll ask you your questions. What did you do and how did you fare in all of these exams? If you have done surprisingly well and good, then you can go ahead with it, but you can otherwise skip that. Yes, if you have helped your family business, go ahead and talk about it. No worries in that. See, if you are like a question, you are a fresher, how will you cope up with the curriculum and with the WorkX people here? You actually have a very good advantage in for it. You can say that I am just a fresher who's still in the groove of studying and used to the academic rigor, and this is going to be an extension of the same. Okay, whereas WorkX people come with a break. It's been long since they studied from books and all of those. So you can say that it's going to be a continuity, which is going to be your advantage. Okay, so that's very important. So Bhargav, based on your SOP, everything that you have written, right from if you have written any quote, you have written any kind of a thought process, your achievements, your journey, your strengths, your weakness, your role in any kind of organization, events, or whatever you have written, every word on your SOP, you should be able to justify with an example. Is important. Yes, if you have done for freshers, also very important to mention about any extra things which adds to your overall profile. Okay, so that's very essential. Then there are a lot of questions coming on your academics. When I say academics, it's based on what you have studied. So if you have someone who studied engineering, you're asked about engineering. If you studied in banking and finance, you're asked about finance-based questions. You're asked about your essential fundamentals of the various subjects which you have done. So ensure that you know brief overview of your entire graduation, what you have done, and at least 2 subjects, deep dive into it and study for that. So that's very, very important. Second last point which is there is on your work experience. How many of you guys out here have WorkX? Guys with WorkX? Okay, 8 months. Okay, Satyush. What else? 13 months, Ayush. Okay, great. So we have a lot of people here. So in your WorkX, they will definitely go into the depth of it in terms of what were you, okay, what was your role? What kind of projects did you do? I will cross question you to actually understand, did you actually work on that or whether it was just fudged, right? So you have to make sure you're able to justify your role, your team role, the role of your entire team, your managers, what you learned from them, what do you think you want to change about them, what was the contribution and impact of you in the project, what is the company currently doing, did your company face any kind of hardships in the COVID situations, and kind of overall thing is your company itself doing. If it's a listed company, to know the share prices of it, how it has been performing over the few months, and also overall know who's the CEO and founder of your companies. Like for example, in my cases for my interview, I was asked who was the CEO of Infosys, because when I was sitting for interviews, I was working with Infosys, right? So you should know such basic things about your company and also about the industry. So if you're working in the IT industry, you should know what are the trends in the entire IT industry. If you're someone who's working in the manufacturing sector, you should know what has been going on. All right, so that's very, very essential. Then you should also be aware of certain current affairs which are happening, like for example about the which is there. Then about the second wave of COVID which is going on. So what's happening around everywhere? For example, NMIMS, you're sitting, KJ Somani, you're sitting for interviews. Both of them are in Mumbai.